Hey everyone, Christina Simmons from Say Yes to Holiness here. I just wanted to kind of build upon my last YouTube video that I did last week, which was all about the 4 keys to faith and life. And those 4 keys were listen, learn, love, and live. And I have been enjoying the opportunity to be able to watch Hamilton at different times, and have been kind of, I watched it a couple of times when I was sick with COVID, and and then have been listening to the music, as I know many people, that was all you could do originally. But I was intrigued by the fact that so many of the lessons in Hamilton, and I did a blog post about this about a month ago, in which I talked about the lessons that are in Hamilton that we can apply to our life and faith. And but I wanted to kind of take that and take some of those lessons and apply them to those 4 keys that I talked about. And that first one, of course, was listen. And in Hamilton, one of the biggest things that is always about your legacy. The phrase, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And as people of faith, we desire to live and to die so that our story will be told in the great story, as part of the great story. And that's exactly who God created us to be. But in order to be able to become a part of that story, we have to listen. First, we have to listen to God and what He desires for us, and for us to also listen to other people who God uses in order to share with us what is His will for us. So first, in order to be able to have our story told, is to listen to the stories that inspire us, to listen to God and how He's trying to inspire us to live out who it is that He created us to be, and especially to other people as they give us some insights into how it is that we can be the saint that God created us to be. The second is learn. And in Hamilton, the biggest lesson I think you probably, would come away with is death doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. And if there's one thing that we need to learn, particularly in this very divisive time that we're living in, is that death doesn't discriminate between sinners and saints. You can live a profoundly good life, and you still could die in a car accident, or you could get COVID. Same thing can happen to someone who, quote, deserves to die. But that's something where we need to be conscious of the fact that what unites us, life and death, and being brokenhearted, and the joys and the struggles and all of what comes with life, those are things that unify us. Those are things that are across the board for every single human person. We all experience these things, and we need to be listening to one another so that way we can learn. And we learn from sinners and from saints. We're not going to just learn or be edified, or for us to be given what it is that God knows we need so that we can be that saint He created us to be, without probably listening to a few people who they themselves are still sinners. I'm a sinner. No problem saying that. But I'm struggling and striving to be a saint. But I pray and hope that even though I'm still a sinner, but with God's grace, I can be a saint. But hopefully, even as a sinner, I'm still able to provide you some hopeful, helpful, inspirational encouragement, and maybe even some wisdom that is able to help you on your journey from sinner to saint. So don't necessarily cast people aside because they, quote, are sinners. All of us have a story. Remember, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. Our stories are part of the great story. All of us have wisdom to share. So always encounter one another in that way, listening and willing to learn. Love is the third. And there are 2 beautiful messages. And again, our world right now needs one of them in particular. And it's Aaron Burr's lament after he is killed, Alexander Hamilton, in the duel. that in which he shot Alexander and killed him, in which he laments and he says, "The world was wide enough." And that's something that we particularly need to remember right now. The world is wide enough for all of us. The church is wide enough for all of us. There's not one way other than the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the way. But how Jesus comes to us, how he desires for us to become like him, is going to be as particular and unique and as different as each of us are. Yes, there are definitely commonalities. Yes, we need to be doing the spiritual habits, the 4 steps to holiness that I talk about, that daily prayer and meditation, frequenting the sacraments, living that life of grace, growing in virtue each day, and abandoning ourselves to God's will. Yes, there's commonalities, but the fact is that the world is wide enough for all of us. Not because we don't speak truth to one another, we don't share it as God has entrusted it to us, but we don't judge. Rather, we encounter each other with mercy. And the other is to be able to learn to live with the unimaginable. The pandemic seems right now to be kind of easing off a little bit, but I can tell you it continues. I've been speaking to people as they've been asking about my husband's and mine experience about COVID, and the fact is that we were truly graced in that we didn't have additional problems as we were going through the illness. The fact is that there's many people out there who are still suffering the unimaginable, which is the loss of life, the sickness and illness of others. There's still tragedy that is in the world. There's still heartbreak that's going on in the world. And we need to remember that. We need to remember because we need to love. We need to love one another to the best of our abilities. And finally, to live. I love the fact of Eliza Hamilton after Alexander is killed, and she spends the next 50 years of her life asking the question, her life in the context of, when my time is up, would I have done enough? And we need to be living our lives this way. We need to be living as if today is our last, because we don't know when our time is going to come. We need to be living so that when we go and stand before our Lord, we're able to say, Lord, I did everything that I could to the best of my ability in that moment, to love, to listen, to learn. I did these things so that I could fully live the life that you desired for me. Also, don't throw away your shot. This is your shot to be a saint. We can say yes to it or we can say no to it. Every time that we make a choice in which we turn our backs from God and we pursue what it is that we desire, we're saying no and we're throwing away our shot. Don't do it. Alexander Hamilton and Marquis de Lafayette and all the guys, John Lawrence, all the guys would be saying, what are you doing throwing away your shot? So don't do that. Because we gotta rise up right now. God created you and he created me. He created all of us for this particular time and place, to be the saints in this particular time and place. The world needs us. The world needs us to rise up and to claim our heritage. What is our heritage? We're the sons and daughters of the High King. We are the princes and princesses of the great High King in heaven. He desires for us to be his images, which he created us in his image and likeness, but he desires for us to be his walking images of love and mercy in this world that so desperately needs it. This world that is so full of disunity and division, discouragement and despair. We need to be those signs of faith and hope, but especially of love. And that's my going back and kind of revisiting Hamilton and tying it into what are those 4 principles that we can live, those 4 keys to faith and to life. And they are to listen, to learn, to love, and then to live. So go out and live. Do whatever it takes to be able to tell the master of death, not today, so that we can embrace that life that God created us for, that life of purpose, peace, and abundance. And if you like what I'm sharing with you today, make sure to go and jump into the 40-day challenge, which is ongoing right now. You can go to the Say Yes to Holiness Today. Just do a search on Facebook for it. It's a private Facebook group. It's Say Yes to Holiness Today. Ask to join the group. All the posts and all the activity is going on in there. But then also, if you'd prefer an email to be sent to you, then you can do that by just texting Say Yes to Holiness, all one word, all caps. Say Yes to Holiness to 66866. That'll get you into the email distribution and will get you the daily email for the 40-day challenge. I hope that you decide to be able to join us on that journey as we continue to strive to be the saint that God created us to be. Thanks for your time. I look forward to seeing you again soon.